Hi, everybody. Welcome to Vanessa's Van Life Journey. I am Vanessa and I'm building out a van, and her name is Sunshine. Let me know in the comments bar below if you know why I call her Sunshine. Sunshiny days. So, y'all, I am here today. OMG. I am here today. I haven't been under the weather, but I haven't been having that much energy and that much appetite. On the carnivore diet, we're supposed to get a lot of fat in our diet, and I know I haven't been getting the fat in my diet that I need, and I'm not even eating that much food because I don't have an appetite. Haven't even had anything to eat today, and it's after 2 p.m. So I am here today to do a little chit chat with you guys about putting your solar system together, and size does matter. Y'all leave in the comments bar below if size matters. Okay. So when I'm talking about size, I'm talking about in reference to your electrical system. When you buy components for your electrical system, the inverter, the controller, the batteries, and all of that, you may be tempted to use the standard wire that comes with those components, but I am here to tell you, don't. Do not use the standard wire that is sent with those components. Depending on what type of current you're going to have running through those components, depending on what type of current you're going to be pulling out of those components, you want to make sure you have the maximum amount of wire that you can have with those components. There is no such thing as too much wire, like too much. When it comes to wiring your components, the bigger the wire, the better, girl. If you didn't know, now you know. The bigger the wire, the better. Now, the bigger the wire, the more expensive it's going to be. But this is a place where I suggest you do not skimp, because this can make or break your whole van life experience. And if you have wire that is too small, it can cause a fire and you can lose your whole van home. Now, I've never heard of anybody vehicle catching a fire because the wire was too big. But you will hear of a lot of people's vehicles that have lost their whole total van home because the wires caught a fire, because the wires were sized improperly. So I am going to suggest to you that you do your research. And sometimes people don't even know that they need to do research. They just think, oh, I ordered this component and they sent me the wire that came along with it, and that means that that's the proper wire, and that means that I should go ahead and use that wire. And that's not always the case, you guys. They are sending you. I wish that companies would not send the wire with the components, because it gives the people who purchased it a false pretense that that is the proper wire for that component. And people don't do their research, and they don't go and find out that for an inverter that is 2,000 watts, you should at least have a 2-aught wire, at least. So they just use the wire that come along with it because the company sent the wire, and they don't do their research, and they use that wire. And for what they're going to be trying to pull for the loads of the battery, they don't do their due diligence. And this is a big fire hazard. So I'm going to suggest to you guys to do your research, Don't take my word for it. I'm not an electrician. I am just a DIY enthusiast that is doing my own van bill, but I am also learning as I go. Like with my other van bill, I use the wires that came along with it. I bought some pre-made wires for my batteries from Walmart. Don't even know what size they were. But when I took my system apart, deconstructed, um, when we deconstructed Treasure, I did notice, I think it was to my inverter, I did notice that one of the wires were like melting and fried. OMG, you guys. Like my van could have caught a fire and probably would have caught a fire eventually if I had not noticed that wire. And that's going to lead me to my next point. My first point is size does matter. Use the largest wire capacity that you should use for that system. And even if you want to be more comfortable, go up even from there. Like it will not, the biggest wire that you can use in a van bill is 4-aught wire for your batteries and your inverter. Now you're going to use smaller size wires for other components, but for the batteries and the inverter, the largest size wire that you could use is 40-aught wire. I paid $209 for 4-aught. Did I say 40-aught wire? I meant to say 4-aught wire. I paid $209 for 10 feet of 4-aught wire. And that was expensive, but you guys, you rather spend the expense up front than to end up having your whole vehicle to catch a fire. So depending on how many batteries, what is going to determine, you're going to say, Vanessa, what is going to determine what size wire that I'm going to use? How many batteries you have is going to determine what size wire you use. And what size inverter you have is going to determine what size wire you use. The more batteries you have, the more power that's going to be flowing through those batteries. So to me, even if you're planning on upgrading your system in the future, but right now you just have one battery, I would suggest that you go ahead and get the 4-aught wire from the beginning. So that's not an additional expense that you're going to incur in the future and like spend money on something right now that's only going to be temporary, when you can just go ahead and get the proper size wire now for your future upgrades. So like if you know that you're going to want bigger batteries or more batteries to your battery bank in the future, go ahead and start with the 4-aught wire, even if you have one battery or two batteries. It's not going to hurt you to have bigger wire, but it will definitely hurt you if you have a smaller size wire and you're trying to pull a certain amount of energy through that wire, and that wire cannot accommodate the flow of energy that you're trying to pull through it. That is what is going to cause a friction, and that is what is going to cause a fire in the future. And that can also damage your components. And you could end up spending all this money on your batteries and frying out your batteries because you did not have the proper size wire. So I have a 3,000 watt inverter. What that means is that I am capable of running appliances up to 3,000 watts. Now, 3,000 watt inverter is not the biggest inverter that you can possibly get. Inverters go all the way up to 5,000 watts and more. And they become very, very, very expensive depending on the number of watts that you get. Now, in Treasure, I had a 1,100 watt inverter, and that was not big enough. It depends on what you're trying to pull out of it. When you have a lot of things plugged up and those things equal to or surpass the amount that your inverter can supply, then that's when you're going to have your inverter cutting off. That's when you're going to have the item at a time, because your lights keep unplugging. And that's when you're going to have things like the type of refrigerator that I have is a dorm freezer refrigerator. It pulls more juice than a 12-volt refrigerator. It's going to have to stay on more often than a 12-volt refrigerator. So that is going to be pulling a lot of juice. I'm not going to have a lot of things in my van that is going to be pulling juice on the constant, but the refrigerator is something that is going to be pulling juice on the constant. So I want to make sure that I have enough power where I'm supplying enough power to the refrigerator at all times with my inverter, and I also have enough allotment to be able to turn on and plug up other things at the same time and not just have to plug up one thing. So like if you know you're going to be using a microwave usually pulls between 1,500 to 1,800, maybe even 2,000 watts. If you're going to be using an induction cooker, that's going to pull a lot. If you have a regular dorm refrigerator like me, that's going to pull a lot. You can look on the back of your appliances and see how much wattage they're going to pull and add that up and decide what type of inverter you're going to need. Also, I suggest from the beginning, go ahead and get an inverter that you can grow with. Don't waste money on a 1,000-watt inverter. You're going to outgrow that 1,000-watt inverter so quickly, and that's money wasted and not money saved. So you're actually saving money by getting something that is going to be able to provide long-term for your system. At the minimal, and this is what I say, I know these components are expensive and they cost money, you guys, but this is the way that you're going to get electric in your van. This is the way that you're going to be comfortable. This is the way that you're going to be able to run a fan, run a refrigerator, run a electrical stove, if that's what you have, an induction cooker. So you want to make sure you have the proper size inverter to begin with. And I just want to let you know, a 1,000-watt inverter ain't gonna cut it, girl. So the next up from 1,000-watt is a 2,000-watt inverter. Now, a 2,000-watt inverter will give you a little cushion, but most appliances take between 1,500 to 1,800 watts. And a 1,000-watt inverter, a 2,000-watt inverter is going to just bring you so close to where you're not going to be able to plug up multiple things at one time. So my suggestion is, which I know it may be seen over the top, my suggestion is a 3,000-watt inverter to begin with. Now, with choosing a 3,000-watt inverter comes some more things that you guys may not know about that I just discovered. Like, I didn't know that depending on what size inverter you have, number one, that you're going to have a certain gauge of wire that you're going to need to have for that inverter. Number two, you're going to have a certain amount of batteries to supply the power for that inverter. So the more watts that you get, the more batteries that are going to be required to supply the adequate amount of power for that inverter. That is not something that people tell you. You just think, oh, I'm going to get the biggest inverter that I could get, 3,000 watts, and I'm going to have one battery. That battery is not going to last you that long. The battery is going to have to work overtime to keep up with the supply and demand of a 3,000 watt inverter, especially if you're running that inverter to capacity. If you're not running the inverter to capacity, then maybe one battery will do. But because you have a 3,000 watt inverter, you're going to tend to want to run that inverter to capacity. So you're going to need the right amount of batteries to be able to pull that amount of juice from the inverter. I know this may not be making sense to some of you, but I'm trying to break it down into layman's term, because if y'all start watching them other videos on YouTube talking about solar and batteries, girl, it might go all the way over your head. So I'm just explaining it to you the way that I understand it, that makes sense for me, so I can make the right decisions for my electrical system in my van. So if you guys have any questions about anything that I've just said, leave it in the comments bar below. But let me turn the camera around so I can explain this to you. Let me also take this opportunity to give a shout out to BougeRV. My electrical system is from BougeRV. I have 900 watts of solar on the top of my van. And BougeRV sent me out the solar panels. They sent me out the inverter. They sent me out the controller for me to use in my van and to give a review on. I've already unboxed those items, and now we're getting to the part where we are putting the components together. And so you'll be seeing these components throughout my van bill of my electrical system. So I just wanted to give another shout out to BougeRV for sending me out these items to install in my van. So I am going to turn the electrical system around, or turn the camera around, show you guys the electrical system and explain to you the inverter that I have and what is going on with that, and helping you to make the right decision to get the right wires and the right amount of batteries. So let's take a look at that. Okay, you guys, so let me show you what my electrical system is going to consist of. I have 4 BougeRV batteries. They did send me out 2, and I purchased 2 on my own. So I have 4 BougeRV batteries. I have a Sunflow 6A controller, and I have a 3,000 watt inverter. So all of this is going to work together, and let me explain to you how and the importance of it working together and what you need to know. So when you decide to have a bigger inverter, like 3,000 watts, that is going to require you to have a bigger battery bank. So I did my research, and the minimal amount of batteries that you should have for a 3,000 watt inverter is 3 batteries. Now you could have more batteries than that, but the minimal amount is 3 batteries. So I have 4 batteries, which means that, and then I have 900 watts of solar on my van, which means that my solar will be sending stored power to my batteries. And the more power that I have stored, the more power I will have on reserve to use anytime that I need it. And so the controller is what takes the power from the solar panels and stores it into the battery. And the inverter is what takes the power from the batteries to pull the power to your outlets, your 120 outlets, like that. So anything that I have plugged in into my outlets, the inverter is going to take that power from the battery to the inverter to supply my outlets. Now, my control breaker box right here, we're going to have our 12 volt items hooked up, and our 12 volt items are going to be our lights. Everything to these wires here is going to be my lights, my USB plugs, and stuff like that. That is going to be pulling from the breaker box, which is going to be pulling directly, I think it's going to be coming directly from the inverter. So we want to make sure that we have the proper wiring and the proper amount of batteries per your inverter. Depending on what kind of inverter you have, whether it's 1,000 watts, 2,000 watts, you have to have a certain number of batteries, and you have to have a certain size wire. Now, with having 4 batteries, I need the biggest size wire that I can have for this system, which is going to be 4-aught. So this is 4-aught wire. And because I have the 4-aught wire and I have 9,000 watts of inverters, 9,000 watts of solar on the top of my van, I have power coming in. That's a lot of current coming through these wires. So the bigger wires, the better. And because I have a 3,000 watt inverter, I'm going to be pulling out up to 3,000 watts at a time from the batteries to the inverter. And the wire size for this type of inverter should be 4-aught wire. If you're using anything less than a 4-aught wire, you probably can use a 2-aught wire and get away with it, but I wouldn't recommend that, because it is recommended that you use a 4-aught wire, which is the same size wire that I have here on all of my components. So I got power coming into the batteries, 900 watts of solar, and I'm going to have up to 3,000 watts coming out of my inverter. So I want the biggest amount of wire that I can get. I did watch a ton of videos recommending that you use a 4-aught wire for your inverter. I suggest you do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Like I say, I'm not an electrician. This is a disclaimer. But I think it's very important that you should know never to use the wires that come with components, because those wires are not going to be sized properly for your system, your complete system. They don't know how many watts of solar you have on the top of your van. They don't know how many batteries you're going to have in your system. So they're just sending wire in general with these inverters, but you have to do your due diligence and you have to size up to the proper wire that is needed. Otherwise, it can definitely cause a fire or short, which may short out your batteries, and then all of that money is going to go to waste. So let me show you guys the size wire that they sent with the inverter. Of course, I'm not using it, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. So this is the size wire that they sent with the inverter. I already have the lugs on it. I don't even know what size wire this is, but as you can see, that is a big difference between the 4-aught wire and this wire. I can pretty much tell this is not even, let me see. This doesn't even look like 2-aught. So this is my 4-aught wire. And this right here is the 2-aught wire. This is 2-aught. And as you can see, I think the 2-aught is even bigger than that. So this is even less than 2-aught wire, you guys, which could definitely cause a fire on the system that I have, a 3,000 watt inverter, 4 batteries, and 900 watts of solar. So like I said before, I think that you should really do your research, plan out what type of system you have. Find out the size wires that you need. Find out the number of batteries that are required at minimal for the type of inverter that you are having. Make sure you get the proper size wire for the inverter. If you have a 2000 watt inverter, you can use 2-aught wire. That's the minimal that you can get away with. But if you want to size up, if you're thinking in the future, maybe I want a bigger inverter, go ahead and get the 4-aught wire to begin with, so that doesn't make money that you're wasting, and then you're going to have to replace the wire and do all of that. And with the wire size, you're going to need the right size lugs. So do your due diligence. We don't want anybody out there having a fire. We don't want you frying your batteries, and we don't want you not being able to run all of the things that you want to run in your van. Having all of these things in your van, a refrigerator, lights, it's a luxury. It makes all the difference in the world when you're doing van life, especially when it's hot. Just being able to have a cold drink or a cup of ice, man, it makes all the difference in the world. And so for that, you want to make sure you have the proper system in your van to be able to supply those amenities. So let me know if this video was helpful. Don't forget, if you have any questions, you didn't understand anything that I said, if you need me to make another video to clarify certain things, leave it in the comments bar below. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be notified each and every time I upload a new video. And I appreciate you guys, and I love you guys so much. And don't forget to subscribe to my other channel, Vanessa's Daily Live Streams. I am posting short vlogs over there a day on things that I'm doing throughout the day that don't make it to these videos. So make sure you're subscribed over there. And I opened up another channel that's called Vanessa, Your Personal Shopper. You guys know I love to shop. I love to find deals. And I'm going to start having mystery boxes where you guys can order the mystery boxes with clothing items in it, with miscellaneous items. So make sure you go subscribe to that channel as well. And if you like my story time videos, I am going to start my story time videos back up on my other channel, He Answers Prayers. So if you are into prayer, if you're into motivational and encouragement, if you want to be inspired by other people's testimonies, things that they have been through, how they have overcome, and you want to find out all the things that I have been through in my life that I am a survivor of, homelessness, being abused as a child, being the DV word when you're married, and all of that, just subscribe to my other channel, He Answers Prayers. So I got 4 channels you can subscribe to. He Answers Prayers, your Vanessa, Your Personal Shopper, Vanessa's Daily Live Streams, and Vanessa's Van Life Journey. So I will talk to you guys later. I appreciate you guys, and thanks for watching. Bye now. I love y'all.